Okay, deep breathing. Okay, let's go into Bangbu Kun. Let's go through a few forms before we start picking and bringing up some of the concept and see how important the geometry of positions are. All right, ready? You're on shift. Oh, we got the social distancing. So, all right, that's good. Okay, ready? Hup, hup, hup. Plus, go. Relax the shoulders. Turn the body. Pull. Get your legs involved. Okay, good. Okay, shake it out. So, last week we actually worked on the 45 corner uppercut. In kungfu, we have the 45-degree vertical punch into the corner. So one of the things is finding that corner. We actually worked on that last class to find that corner, and finding that corner is really your feet are like the steering wheel or the tires, and you steer yourself into that direction. So setting up your feet is the key. And one of the things I brought up in the last class was that most of us, 80% of the imagery or the movements are picked up in the eyes, and then it's kind of housed there. So what do we look at mostly are the hands. We always look at the hand techniques. We look at the hand techniques because we're most familiar using our hands and maybe our arms. The torso, forget it, we're not really that familiar with it as an average person. Leg work, forget it, we don't see the detail there. And the reason why we don't see it is mainly because we don't know it exists because of what we visually pick up on. So we miss a lot. We miss a lot, as far as the body positioning and how the feet maneuver. So if you even went through a drill, we'll do that in a little while. Go through drill. Can we remember which foot pivots, which foot shifts, and all the sequence of events that has to happen for your leg work to work, and what has to happen to get your body connected to that. So once your body gets familiar with it, then your eyes will be open. You have a more open mind to see things that are not obvious. And that's how you have to actually pick up visually, because if 80% of the things you're learning is through the eyes, then when you don't see the legs, you're getting 0. And then when you do see the legs, your eyes will actually start to focus on that, and you'll start to notice things that you didn't notice before. And that's just, that's a natural course of learning, simply because it's all new in some instances. Even though you've been doing it for a long time, you're always asking, what are these, how come I saw it like this and you're doing it like this? I get that with Tai Chi. People have been studying for 20 years, so they say, oh, you didn't do this last time, or you didn't do that. Because when I teach, I kind of teach to the group, and I kind of modify it and adapt it to what people are seeing at the time. So it's not always going to be exactly the same, but sequentially it's going to be consistent. Execution will vary based on the group that's involved in the class. So the more advanced, the more things that are happening that should be happening, then I go a step beyond that, and then I bring up certain things. But if you're in a class and it's a general class, then all that information is valuable, because you have to house it in here even though it went through here. And now when people say it goes in this ear and goes out the other ear, it's not that it goes in there, but it doesn't know what it's listening to because you're not hearing it the way we're interpreting it. So that's perception. So, okay, so let's do fourth form, and then we'll go to those 45-degree lines. All right. So this is Zhenjiang. A lot of footwork, a lot of pivoting. Go. Try to stay together. Am I going to go there? Yeah, that's good. Go. Yeah. Push. Palm. All right. Deep breathing. Inhale. So, first form, lots of removals, right? Removals. Chun kyo is a removal. So, in the fourth form, you want to make some contact and develop some friction between the hand and the leg to get that. When you're here, before you, so you can't do that if it's stiff and tight because it's action and it's the two sides working together. You have to stroke and pull simultaneously. Now this is what we're watching, but what you have to know that when this is down, we have to sink. When you step forward, you punch, it has to go in that direction. When you chun kyo, right, you draw to create the block. So this is called what is this called anyways? Do you guys know? Remember what it's called? Anybody remember? Huh? It's called chun kyo, right? But what is it? What is this specifically? It's called a danji kyo, right? Danji means index, one finger. Kyo is bridge. So it's called a danji kyo. So it's called a single finger bridge. So that's, and even though it's an iron wire form, it's not the iron wire bridge. It's a danji kyo. So it's good to know that because that's what represents the Hunga style, single finger. Every Hunga person studies that bridge. And when you're here, when we push, the dynamic tension and the idea of why we're doing that is because you want your wrists to pull back to develop the tension here, build strength, its movement is dynamic. But it's also stretching your forearm. It stretches your forearm to have dexterity. This is neutral. This is flexing. This is flexing the opposite way. So in order to develop the balance and movement and balance in your strength and energy, you have to develop the control of that. And that really works the wrist. And when it works the wrist, it develops the strength there. And it interrupts completely the tension in your hands, and you can move your hands separately. So when the wrist is folded, you can still move your fingers. So if your wrist is folded and this is excessively tense, you can't move your hand because this is controlling this and you end up stiff. So when you do a bridge, you still have the option of grabbing and pulling. So that's a control factor that we kind of build into the movement. So tension isn't always created equal. It has to be understood in the body. So this is dynamic. This is movement. Now when we do this, it turns. It turns and it ends up shoulder height. This ends up 45 degrees or angled to protect your waist area. So a bridge like this is not right. It's there when you push, but it's not there when you block. So you have to differentiate those two positions, because those two positions have different purposes. These are dynamic. These are dynamic. These are dynamic. Right? This is movement. They're two different things. In Fuhak, we do this, right? We come up and like this. Then we come up. This is pushing, and it's a different strength. So it looks the same. When you get to the position, it looks the same, but it's not the same in interpretation and in intent of motion. So that's where, just like this. The intent of the movement is to remove. So you have to draw back. The hand pulls, and this goes down, and this goes down. And you turn the body, because without turning, you can't create the same body mechanics. If you don't turn the body, you can't connect the two sides, because the upper-lower coordination has to do with how your body responds. So ultimately, your body will have a response, because for every action, there's going to be an equal opposite reaction. So that's what happens. We're here, fold, and we're here. Right? Make sure when you do this that you're driving it from the legs. So, in the last class we had someone that was doing this. Yeah. Right. What's wrong with that? Okay. How about this?
You can't push off that toe.
Mm-hmm.
You could, but it's not as strong as pointed.
So in traditional kungfu, we want the feet to be attached to ground. It's called rooting, right? Grabbing the floor. So we always hear the term rooting, and rooting is just a metaphor for you to think that you're like a tree, growing roots into the ground. And what does roots do to a tree? Well, what's the purpose of those roots? It brings nutrients to the tree itself, but it goes deep into the ground, and it grows and grows and grows. Part of it looks for water, and part of it is expanding to its extremities, sort of growing out, because the tree's leaves, the outer limit of it, has roots that go to the same limit and go straight in the ground. Because the bigger you get up top, the bigger the base has to be. So that's what happens. So when you're doing traditional arts, you have to develop a root. You have to be rooted to the ground, and the foundation of that stance is in your root. So you have to learn to settle. You have to relax the joints and not actually tense the legs. Because what people think going into stances is bending your legs. And one of the things I talked about last week was that why do people have trouble relaxing into their legs? What's the main reason? Because probably it's not really thought about this way, but what do you think the main reason why we have trouble sinking in the stance and getting into the stance, per se, getting into the stance by settling and releasing? The reason, Kim, what would you say is one of the reasons is? Letting go, right? But you let go of the joint. So releasing is letting go. In Tai Chi, we call it fong song. Kung Fu is also fong song is the term they all use. It's releasing tension joints. The reason why we can't release the tension in the joints in the lower part of the body is because it's weight bearing. So the legs, when you stand there, supporting a load. So once there's a load on your skeleton, the muscles respond. So when you stand there, your legs want to hold your body up, so it starts to tense, and it doesn't, want to let you collapse, so it's bearing your weight. For you not to bear weight, you have to release the tension in the joints. That ability varies with individuals because when you want to let go, you don't want to let go so much that you're going to collapse. So when people go in a downward posture, they end up doing this. They can't go beyond this point because it's bearing your weight. In order for you to go beyond that point, you have to release yourself and let your body sink. And that's actually sitting. So you have to sit into your stance and not allow it to sustain yourself in a position where your legs won't release. That's something you have to think about. But that's actually the mechanism that doesn't allow someone that hasn't really done this go to a downward posture. It doesn't go beyond that. They say, well, my knees don't go beyond that. But it does go beyond that when you pick your knee up and you fold it like that. It goes into this position because it's not bearing weight. It's not holding in a compromised, tense position. So that's what the anatomy is doing. So if you understand that, then you can get into some of those deeper stances without hurting yourself, because when your knee's like this and you try to go down and you can't, and you keep trying, you keep straining your joint and the ligaments and the tendons, so you can't actually begin to squat down. So the flexibility that you develop is only for range of motion. The rest of it is a control. It's a neurological muscular control. It's not just flexibility. You can go in a split and not go into that stance, but because there's a compromise between the two. But most people that are that flexible learn to release because they can stretch. So that's why stretching is important, to let you know when to release. But being totally flexible does not mean that you have enough control of the strength to go into the position. So that's just something you have to understand, even as an instructor or a teacher, that there's a reason for why that happens. So then, let's go to the 45-degree line, right? So we're here, we're in a horse stance, right? And we turn, and we go to this position. That's 45 degrees. And we open. There's your horse stance. We're in a 45-degree corner. But if we're going over there, we have to be offset. Now we're in the corner. Then we straighten this foot, find the 45 degree, go straight out to the side, adjust this foot, turn. There's your other 45 degrees. So when we step, we go to this position a little beyond to go offset. We turn into the stance, and then we move, and then we turn again, sink down, and turn. And then it just happens. Then it just happens. Okay, now, let's step back and let's see if we can reproduce what I just did, right? Okay, so I'll count. First, find your 45 degree, go. 1, 2, offset, lean, wrong way, that way, yeah, 45. Okay, we're going to the corner. Next, 1, 2, offset, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, offset, turn. Okay. So let's do that again without pivoting the front foot to get into this stance. So in other words, when we're in this corner, we go to offset and we turn, just turn the back leg. Leave this one. See what I mean? And then we straighten this here and then turn. Now the feet stay kind of parallel, right? If I turn like this and go here and then turn, I'm in the leaning and my front leg was actually rooted. If you let it shift, then you lost a little bit of stability on that front leg. But when we're like this, and I leave that, the weight goes into it, then I release the hip. And the knee stays folded, and you're not going to stress your knee out because you release your hip. I think some of the times the front foot will pivot because the hip really doesn't release enough. So you end up doing this, and both feet do this. But you don't want to move both feet because you lose your root at that point. You see what I mean? So just try that to see if you can get, to see what that feels like. But that's a sequence of events, right? So you have to go through the process. So we'll count through it. Let's start off in a horse stance. Okay, and then we're going to pivot to leaning, and then we're going to adjust that front foot. So, okay, I think I confused you a little bit. We go to leaning, we adjust this a little bit, because this is already, you're in the leaning. Just a little to find the 45 line, and then we're here. There's your 45 direction, your turn here, and here's your other lean. Now, because this is cranked over like this, that's where you would open it. And then that'll help you define where 45 degrees is. Okay, Rick? Well, when you're like this and you turn out, then this one follows. It's okay, I guess, as one way of doing it. But what I want you to do is try to get the front leg rooted. So you're holding this position and then gripping here and letting your hips turn. And if that shifts because of the action, it works your joints a little bit differently. And it also gives you, a sense of what that angular position is, because you're finishing it, and we're talking about the sensors in your joints. You have to go to that position and let it get defined up in here. See? So okay, so let's just try it a couple of times like that. So we go into the horse stance. We're here. 1. Okay. Now we turn to leaning, and then we'll just free it up a little. Offset. Turn. Turn. 1, 2, turn. So it just makes you have to close that hip, because closing that hip and then getting your weight to it actually helps you settle into that front leg. So now this is just working your body so that it gets carried through into your other forms. Because when you go into the corner and you do this and you step, that stays until you move. If I go like this, that's going to take me in a direction to here, or even here, right? When I cross and I step. So kill and boo, right? Takes you in a direction, and then you would cross, and then step, and then lean. So that defines the intersection of the 90-degree point. Because if I'm 45 degrees here, I have to go 90 to cross over. So I'm ending up like this. But my torso turns this way. When I step and my foot faces that way, my torso ends up facing this way. So the center of this goes to here, and the stance goes to there, and I end up here. Right? Then you would go from here. So because between here, here, and here is your 45 and 90-degree positions. So once the foot knows this, this, and this, then your 45 lines are going to be defined. You know where the direction is. That's what I mean by steering you in a direction. Because it only 0, 45, 45. So we do this, and we do this, and we do this, but what about this? Right? So that's how we define through muscle memory the skeletal memory in the joints, because that's really what muscle memory is. It's joint angle memory, taking you in that direction. So got that kind of? Yeah. It's something to think about and then digest it. But digesting it is taking it into the footwork to know that that's what's happening. And then if you do all your forms with this in mind at least, then your forms are going to evolve in the lower half of your body. Because if your upper body is doing something and your lower half is doing something and it's tied through your torso, the bottom has to be as accurate as the top. Otherwise, it's going to be a discrepancy in your position, right? So that gives you kind of a different perspective. So let's do 8th form for kuen, right? That has a lot of footwork in it. So put the footwork to use and see if we can kind of figure it out. Okay, ready? Eyes down. Now really, the first movement is a 45-degree salute. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 90. Offset. 1. Sliding step. Boom. Right? Now we have to straighten and then cross. That's what we do, right? For the butterflies. Okay, ready? Begin. Go. Okay, good. Keep breathing. Now the stuff we just talked about, you have to be conscious of it. And then you have to think about whether your feet are doing that or not. So you wouldn't be able to do that if you didn't know the form. So because you could go through that and be conscious of your legs, that means the form itself is in your subconscious and it's coming out as subconscious behavior. Because sequentially, it's no longer as important because it already knows it. So you just go through and your legs, you're paying attention to that. So that's how we evolve. It has to happen like that with gung kun, with fu hak, all of these forms that you know, it has to come out like that. And then when we talk about where the positions are, it starts to make a lot of sense. So, the triangles, the swoops, and the squares are important. We talk about the cross hand, the middle hand, the vertical elbow, the high block position, the lower hoops, the cross hand positions, which is this. It has to pass through all of these positions in space, right? So how do we get that to happen? Through the muscle memory of each position. And it knows exactly where it's going to stop. So let's do, because a lot of things we do are dynamic. It's finding those positions. Let's go to just the movement side of it, which is the second half of Fu Hawk. So we just did Fu, so that covers that territory. We can go to Fu Hawk and let's go to that. Okay, ready? Second half of Fu Hawk. Ready? With the salute. Ready? Begin. Hup! No, butterfly. Okay. Oh, I mean, you got a little too fast. Oh, you just didn't even learn it yet. Okay, you can go over there, yeah. And then Paul will work with you a little bit. So Paul, I got her up to just the butterfly, and I did the first tiger, second tiger, only as a drill. I didn't take her into the sequence, so you can show her the first five movements. Yeah, okay. Okay, deep breathing. Now, one thing I think we mentioned before, when you do the 10 tigers, don't be shy with the footwork, because you got to cover some space so that you get used to stepping. Because if you're shy and you're stepping within the realm of that space, then you're not going to be able to get out of your own way. Your feet are going to get tangled. You know, it's sort of like doing a crescent, the 360 pedal step in Tai Chi, and you just kind of keep your legs straight. You can't pivot around when your feet are like that, right? You have to cross over, spread your feet, go into a stance, and then you can turn. Right? So if you're in, say, in the corner, you have to shift your weight in order for you to make a step. You have to shift your weight in order to take your step. You have to turn, spread the legs, push, turn, cross, lift, cross, step, 1, 2. So you define your leg work so each foot has a strength and the other side. So substantial and substantial. When we do our cross step and we turn, we step, and we step, open the stance. Don't be shy with the leg because it's too tight. So now, while we have all these crazy positions in form, we talk about alignment, because each one of those have a different structure and a different interpretation. You have to kind of look at the movement and see where it's going. So if you're here and you go like this, you have to lean into it and relax the shoulders and get your hand there. And then bring it around and then punch. Now you got to look at the body form. You can't be like this. You have to relax the hip. You have to turn here. And you turn. So this is something that is sort of throughout all the forms. When you have a side position like this or a side position like this, that body has to be like that. And you don't want to punch here and your body's over there. Right? So that's the alignment we're looking at. We're here. We have it iron wire. We have it in many places. That's like the 90-degree position to where we're going. If I trap here, then this is 90. If I punch here, it's like this. So that's the target position, and we go for that. When we're here, go in the stance, hands are here. All we're doing is turning like this, and then slant and twist the body and go into this position. Right? And then we can come back and then bring it around and then bring it around. Okay, now look at your elbow. Look at your position. It's not open. It's sinking. You're in your stance. This is over your knee. This hand is not overly extended. And you're like this. Okay, so that foot actually should be back more. Yeah, so that's what doesn't allow you to turn your back enough. Yeah, see. But then don't let your shoulder go. Okay. And then in your vertical elbow position, yeah, that's good. So here, and then this hand is here. Okay, so before you had a little bit like that. So you actually can turn a little more if you can. A little more. Yeah, a little more. Okay. See, the two sides have to work a little bit overextended here. Elbow should collapse a little bit there. Turn a little bit in the back here, like that, right? Sustain this position and then look here. Because ultimately what you're doing is blocking and punching, right? So you're here. Right. This is vertical. This is there. Between here and there is your punch. So what's generating the punch? The rotation and the pivoting of your feet. Now here, I pivot because I'm going from here to here, and I end up like that. In this instant, I might move that with it too. I will move this too. Yeah. The other one was more to get you to define your hip position so that it'll close, more of an exercise. Because once you start moving, you're there. You have to move, and if it has to adjust, it adjusts. If it doesn't have to adjust, it doesn't. So if I'm here, then I do this. I might not move this, but when I do this, I might move both of them. Because it's kind of situational, and you have to modify your position based on, but you have to find your root before you execute the punch. Because if the legs are trailing, you're going to be off balance. So then, if you go on and you do the drunken fist and you're here, you have to find that position, right? And then you do the next move, right? And then you go. 1. And then you step up. There's your chun kyo, right? Chun, right? You're here. And then this can be here. It doesn't have to be here. It doesn't have to be here. You're here. So it can be out a little bit, and you're here. 1, 2. Now we're folding. This is going to come down. 2. Step. Here's your 45. 3. Step. 4. Step. 5. So what we kind of don't do enough of is step through your center. You don't pass through your center. You don't give you a chance to sort of make that leg that's taking the weight solid. Because you have to move the empty leg. So if we're here, we have to pass through here, define that position, then go into this, right? If we step to here, I can transfer my weight to here. Then I can lift to here. Then I can shift and then come to here. You see what I mean? So you keep passing through center, keep shifting and transferring the weight into the leg. So the leg that's bearing the weight has to be able to relax and allow you to transition through. Otherwise, your leg's going to be stiff and tense. So that's why I brought up the weight-bearing part of that. We have to understand that and then try to work your way through that weight-bearing part of it. Obviously, it's carrying your weight, but sometimes it's excessive. It's stiff. So if it's stiff, you're not going to be able to maneuver. You know, when you're in a position and you're, like in the full hawk, and you're dropping down and you're crossing, you have to free fall to here, and then you're going to go into your drunken fist, right? So when you drop and you step and you adjust, then you're here, right? To here, then you're here, and you're here, then you're here. If you get your legs right, your upper body will coordinate with it and it'll look right. See? So it's tremendous body control. You can't, sequence is sequence. It doesn't vary off of that. Your body control and your execution is what really makes the difference. So it's at least you get familiar with it, and then you can work with it. When we're here, when you hook, okay, let's do the double backwards. Sink. Okay, now we're going to turn out, right? Hook. We have to step up. We have to step and then hook. Then we're going to take a sliding step and pull back. Boom. And then boom. Those are 3 steps advanced, right? So you're here, you go 1, 2, 3. Right? Again. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's do it again. So you coordinate footwork, moving. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Those 3 movements should happen. Boom, boom, boom. Again, ready? 1, 2, 3. So make sure you turn your shoulders, move your feet, and tie it together. 1, 2, 3. 1. Cross. 3. Okay, make the circle big. Relax the shoulders. Relax the chest, relax the back. So when we're here, you have to relax. You have to. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. The coordination, you're here, you're here. Cross hands, cross legs. Open, right? Open, close, up, 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 and switch. Footwork, pivot, cross stance. So the cross stance is X block or the 10. The Chinese 10 is like this. Cross hand is the same. So when you're here, you have to step. You step, sink, cross, right? Cross, open, and then you sink. Now the hands from here goes vertically up, and then up. Turn. So this can go high, way over. So the right? Because if the hand is coming here, then it can't be here. See what I mean? So then, let's do that again. Ready? Let's do from here. 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's try it again. Ready? Hook. Let's sao chui. Kwa chui. Yap do chui. Right? So then you're here. Right? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, right? 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pause. Right? So get your body turned because you're here. not here, here, right? And then here. And then push. So this comes with the kick, and you punch. So that's called wong winghung, shadowless kick. Not that it's really striking and kicking and then following up. But this position is a position, and then you move from there, and then you strike. So the body form should be here, so your body's twisted. This one actually doesn't go over the top. You're here. Because from here, you're going to go that way. And then push. Then cut. Leopard. Leopard pause. Show eye level. Eye level. Eye level. Relax the elbows a little. What's that? Bridge of the nose. But you're doing both hands, so you're striking. But it doesn't, when you do forms, this is a practice. You're doing both sides. You're not going to really do this because usually you're doing this. If you cut, you're going to do this or this. You're not going to do this. Because if you do this, you're in here. You'd have to do this. So you hit one as a practice to body form. You're developing the timing and the body covering. You know, like a feline, like a leopard, when they pounce on you, the body is coming down with tremendous leaping force. When you cut and you come up, boom, you're coming up like that. And it comes over the top as a training, and it creates the imagery that gives you that. So again, it's not your hand. It's coming over. Once it's there, boom, it's there. Right? So it gives you the idea of how, and then make it a little bigger. Just like we don't relax. Open. So you have to relax. They're a little higher. Just like a back fist. If you do a back fist like this, and then you go like this, it's all tight. You do a back fist, let it go. Because during transition, you can be soft. And then you let it go, but sink. You stop it here, but sink.
That much, huh?
Oh, now you have strength here. Not that much, huh?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, see, now you see. It's a structure.
So we're doing the whole.
This is the whole, this is the structure. This is the sink. Mm-hmm. Your body goes on top of that. This becomes part of that. Mm-hmm. Right. If you don't do that, then how much do you have here? Right. Very little. Right. So you sink the elbow, and then you have strength. Mm-hmm. So that's what it is. The body form is your strength. It's your structure. You know, it's your foundation of your movement, but then quadri. If you go to gung kun, right, here, right, 1, 1, 2, 3, high block, diagonal strike, high block, double back fist, right, those three positions. Take a look at Liu Ga Kun. High block, diagonal strike, high block, elbow down. Not a whole lot of difference in that transition. You follow me? 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Difference is stance. 1, horse. 2, right? Sorry, 3. Difference is horse. But the action is on upper body is essentially the same. I have a high block, a diagonal strike, a high block, and a pullback. A high block, diagonal strike, high block, and a pullback. High block, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. The upper body is moving essentially the same. You didn't really need Fu Hawk. You already have this. But the thing is, you didn't identify it as that because it's a different form. But the category of movement is in that motion. In fact, that sequential event is almost identical except for a modification of your stance. So what do you learn? You learn that this is a lift. You learn that I can strike my hand here or here. I learn to lift from here, and I pull back and train my leg to take the pressure of the back and sink. Can the leg withstand the sink and stay stable? Because this is easier in a sense, but it's a little bit different. But it's essentially using the same movement. I could block like this, or I could block like this, depending on, where it's coming, but the movement action is the same. So, when we practice forms and we progress into this idea of imagery, then it crosses, cross-training to other forms. It's the same. So a lot of the things that we do are the same. Quadri is a quadri. Single, double. Not really a whole lot of difference in action in the upper body. But when I go like this has a purpose. When I go like this, it seems like this is not doing it. But once I have this, I have this. You see? So that's how your body your body starts to recognize. Because how do we learn? We learn through recognition, identification. We identify that movement and we identify the posture, and then we know that that's what's going to happen in that movement. So, it's just giving you, some insights so you can still have that open mind about when you're practicing. So it doesn't say, well, there's so much stuff going on. It's really opening, the avenues to do the movements better. Timing, position. So Seung-an Sin-yoma, 5 coordinations, hand, eye, body, waist, and stance really come into play now because the stance work, stability, agility, and foundation, rooting is all in there. Footwork and stance work all tied together. Not just opening your stance and have that. We do this to open. Actually, from day one, we'd already learned this. And now when we learn this, and learn this, and learn this, and this, and this, and this, or this, and this, it's like we never did it before, right? We get into suspended horse, and we go into a position, and we start to go 1, 2, 3, 4. We do the same thing one-legged as we did when we opened the stance. Hunga, it's unique because while we're doing this here, 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 to here, when we get to here, right, and we go like this, there's your footwork. But it's not so good when we get to the iron wire form because it's narrow, we can't get our hips to work right, and it feels a little bit awkward and you feel off balance because, why? Because the musculature is kind of in conflict. It's not really working for you because it's bearing weight in an awkward position like this, and then you try to move. You can't, right? So you have to unweight. You have to learn to pivot. You have to pivot, and you realign your hips. So when we move, it's really like everything else that we're doing is a motor skill. What it doesn't know what to do, the two sides are kind of in conflict. This is what we've been working on. This is the stance we've been familiar with. And then all of a sudden you're tightening it all up. So that's why your legs will have to go through a relearning and an unlearning, but then all of it starts to become familiar, and then it gets easier. And you're not so stiff in a position where you feel like you're doing this, because you're actually pretty relaxed in this stance. Now once we're here, well, I can't get out of it. Well, why don't you do this? Why don't we do this? And that's what we do, right? When we go to here, we do this. How do we get into that position before we do this? So that's the mabu. The mabu is really very important in the traditional arts. Because if you notice it, like the wushu and all the other modern stuff, What do they do a lot of? Twirls, front jumps, and what else? Track. They do a lot of track. They do a lot of running, right? A lot of running. And what else? What other sports do a lot of running? That has kind of this twirling and stuff. Gymnastics, right? They're going to do that handspring, or they're going to do that pommel thing, whatever. Don't they run like crazy to get there, to get speed and acceleration, and then bounce off of that to get you into a position? So running is in a lot of, these sports. And then, in skiing, what do? They use downhill, or the slalom. They go down and they're gonna really use acceleration. Then they do all their stuff after they get that speed going, right? So in traditional arts, we get in our footwork, and then we accelerate, finish a point, then we go to the next one, then we go to the next one. But that's because we're using it as a martial art, or it has some functionality to do it. So, all the stuff that we're doing is really building blocks to a better understanding of why we have to do it. So, hopefully this all makes sense to you. Some of it does, right? Any questions? No? How about Ari? Anything? Huh? Too many? All right. Save 2 for next week. No, it's the same thing that we go over all the time. Hope it's not too boring, but it's just a redundancy in everything I say. But it's because, not everyone is processing it the same way. That's all. How about Lawrence? Yeah.
I'm interested in correcting my transition. Am I weight shifting to my right leg, coming here, and then up?
Yeah, so your legs are too close together. Yeah.
I'm not finding this position.
Yeah. So when you're in a horse stance here, and then you have to come down first, and then come to here. That movement is in your first form. High, low, turn, dragon, right? So if you're here, 1, 2, that essentially is that weight shift. Yeah, but you don't cross over. You don't cross over, because that takes you off your center line. Your center line is here. I'm here. I have to stay on my center line in order for me to track the movement. Because once you veer off that center line, it throws your movement up. Because my hand is going vertically up, and I'm going that way, it's going to take the movement out of line. So this is something that's important for your body to recognize. Yeah. So, you're still crossing over. The reason why you're crossing over is because you're not pivoting this foot out. You're doing this, you're pivoting it to here. Well, this one is pivoting to here, and then for you to get that cross-legged position, it feels like you have to go over there. So what you have to do is spin more. Yeah. Because this point and this center line is going to be where you're trying to find. Yeah. Okay, do it again. Yeah. So if you sunk your elbow here before you go up, or here, then you have a better, the front elbow, better transition on up stroke, because the movements have to be rising and compatible as a line movement, right? Yeah, and then go down and up and down and up. Let's try sinking the elbow, relaxing the shoulder. That's a good closing note. Sink the elbow, relax the shoulder. Let's make a tattoo. Okay, ready? Bow. All right. Okay. Don't put it on the forehead.
Still have to grip on the toes.
It seems like you'd be better off doing this because you're covering your center rather than dropping and coming around.
Yeah, but because we're here, you want to create a timing for the rise and fall. Just, in use, in use you might just do this, but because this is a form and you want to develop a timing transition, that is a cross. So it gives you time to create the step.